This is session 3 of God's Lessons. And we said yesterday that our desert times may not necessarily be the work of the evil one, because God can take us into the desert to teach us lessons. The desert that the Hebrew people knew was hot and dry, and the heat of summer could be very overwhelming. There were trees that grew there, not a lot, but they did grow. And one such tree was the broom tree. It was a tree with small leaves, and so its shade was dappled, but it was enough to just make it a few degrees cooler. It provided a little bit of relief from the scorching sun. Psalm 121 verse 5 says this: "The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night." Now to us the picture of that is a beautiful shady English tree with lush foliage. But to the Jewish people, they didn't know such trees, and it would have been something like the broom tree. Not a dense shade, but enough to make a difference. The psalm is talking about help that comes from God, that when we feel scorched by the circumstances of life, God's going to provide enough shade that will give us strength to keep going. Now the other thing in the psalm, it says that God is our shade at our right hand. Even if we stretch our arm out as far as we can, our right hand never goes far from us. And that's how close God is. That's how close he is in giving us that shade from the scorching sun. Just enough to keep us going. And that tree is going to be there whenever it's needed. That broom tree could be simply a word from God, or it could be something that someone does for us, or just a word they speak to us that keeps us going. Just enough. We may need to change our thinking in hard times, and instead of looking for rescue, look for the shade tree along the way, the thing that will give us enough to help us keep going. The promise of God is He's always there with His shade. Let's learn to look for it and be thankful. To be looking for a way out can be to miss the shade that God is providing. Now in Isaiah 32 we read, "See, a king will reign in righteousness," and that of course is Jesus. "Rulers will be like shelter from the wind, a refuge from the storm, streams of water in the desert, and shadow of a great rock in a thirsty land." That's what God's people are to be like. They are to be the shade in the desert. In Psalm 80 it refers to Israel as a vine transplanted from Egypt, and how it covered the hills of Israel with its shade. We are called to be that shade for other people in their desert times. If they're being scorched by their circumstances, we can provide that little bit of shade that keeps them going. Again, it might be an encouraging word from God, or it might just be an act of kindness or generosity. Whatever is needed, something to keep them going. The point is, the shade is always there. It's as close as our right hand. So we're to look for the broom trees along the way and learn that God is a God who can be trusted completely.
Will you hide me in your shelter? Will you shade me with